What's going on? This is TJ Murphy, and welcome to another episode of Adventurous Entrepreneurs. My guest today is Anthony Rosano. At just 12 years old, Anthony faced life-altering adversity when a severe fire engulfed him. Miraculously surviving against grim odds, Anthony emerged from the ordeal with severe injuries, battling sepsis, undergoing numerous blood transfusions, and receiving his last rites 3 different times. He defied expectations, and despite losing fingers, enduring extensive scarring, he pushed forward, realizing his dream of playing football under the stadium lights. Anthony's indomitable spirit, guided by his faith, carried him through a painful recovery and years of intense therapy, enabling him not to only play football again, but to become a 2-year letterman on the varsity team. Channeling his experience, Anthony earned degrees in business administration and taxation. Today, as a certified public accountant and NFL contract advisor, Anthony co-runs a successful advisory firm. A devoted family man, his compelling journey inspires many, emphasizing the power of determination and the importance of perseverance against all odds. Just a few of the golden takeaways Anthony shares in this episode are how to overcome true adversity and believe in yourself, the importance of starting where you are and making friends in business, the why factor, and an important accounting principle every new business owner needs to know. So, without further ado, this is me and Anthony Rosano. Welcome to the Adventurous Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, TJ Murphy. Since quitting my corporate 9-to-5 and starting a business while backpacking through Asia back in early 2017, I've had the privilege of learning from some incredibly adventurous entrepreneurs. Through these conversations and my own journey, I've learned that much like in life, entrepreneurship is an adventure. On this podcast, I explore the journeys of top-performing leaders in their fields. These wide-ranging conversations include tactical business advice, how I built this insights, lessons in leadership, life hacks, travel stories, favorite hobbies, and insights into living a purposeful and joy-filled life. Adventures await us, so let's dive in. Hey, Anthony, welcome to Adventurous Entrepreneurs.
Hey, TJ, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and have the opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
It's an honor to have you here. I'm really, really excited for this conversation. And I'd love to start with just a bit of background on the journey because it's truly an incredible one. So a bit of context for everyone. Anthony is the embodiment of triumph over adversity, surviving a horrific childhood fire that covered 87% of his body, if I'm not mistaken, and cost you your left hand. Your resilience saw you take that really tragic incident, but then return to the football field as a starting linebacker for the Newcastle Red Hurricanes before embarking on, a successful business career. So Anthony, can you tell us a bit about your story leading to you becoming the adventurous entrepreneur you are today?
Well, thank you. And absolutely. And, business is kind of a passion of mine these days, but it didn't always start that way. When I was a 12-year-old back in 1987, I was just a young athlete. I had an uncle who played for the Cincinnati Bengals. I had another uncle who worked in professional football for the 49ers. And I had the opportunity to attend Super Bowl 16 as a young boy, where Joe Montana won his first Super Bowl. And so playing football as a young kid was my life, and other sports as well. And on October 31st, 1987, was the day of an important Pop Warner Championship football game for me. I was a chance that I could play under the lights at a hallowed ground called Taggart Stadium in Western Pennsylvania, where a lot of great athletes like Joe Namath and Tony Dorsett and a lot of people that had played on in all the glorious Newcastle high school football teams. And that was the night where I was supposed to get my chance to play for the first time under the lights. But as fate would have it, my friends and I decided to take a little bit of a different turn that day. And as it would turn out, my buddy flicked a match inside of my garage, and my pants caught on fire, and I was engulfed in flames from my ankles all the way up through my shoulders. It was a ball of flame. So I was stuck in the garage and finally got my way out. And when I was there, the fire was crackling around me. I had a moment. I was in intense pain, but I had a moment of peace under fire, to be truthful, that was kind of miraculous. My neighbors came out and covered me with an army blanket and put the fire out. By that time, I was burned over 87% of my body, third-degree burns. I did not look the same. My life had changed forever. I was then taken by a Life Flight Angel One helicopter to West Penn Burn Unit in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the medical staff had said if I lived for a day, I would die in 3 days. If I live for 3 days, I would die in 3 weeks of infection. 3 weeks into it, just as they had predicted, my heart rate was 189 beats a minute for 3 consecutive days. My blood pressure was 49/20. My fever shot up to 106. I was not responding to any of the medication. And the medical staff told my parents that they had to make funeral arrangements. There's nothing more that they could do, and they quit administering medication. Lots of prayers. My family iced my wrists and ankles all night. I had a priest bring a little old lady from the north side of Pittsburgh to my room. She anointed me with this oil. She kissed my mother and said I would be okay. Against all odds, the next morning after that vigil, that praying vigil, for some reason that's beyond explanation, my heart rate stabilized, my blood pressure stabilized, and my fever went away. 2 weeks later, the tube was taken out of my mouth. I was no longer intubated, taking my first steps. After 134 blood transfusions, 43 surgeries, my last rites given me 3 times, I was finally told I would make it from the hospital. Left the hospital, my doctor said, hey, listen, you're going to survive, but the way you live your life from here on out is going to determine your destiny. You could either be in a wheelchair the rest of your life, or you could get back on the football field. Well, I really believed it. And so I went through the physical therapy for then the next couple years, where I had to learn really to walk and run again and get my arms up above my head and just learn how to accept myself, the different version of myself. I look different. The psychological effects, there was a lot of them, and they persist at times through your entire life. But lo and behold, 3 years later, I made my steps onto the football field. And by the time I was a senior, 6 years later, I was the starting outside linebacker for the Newcastle Red Hurricanes. I had a lot of sacks my senior year. I was by no means the most infamous player or the greatest player from my family, let alone the program. But being part of the program meant so much for me because I was never supposed to be there. It was a calling card in my life that, and without having football and the desire to get back there, I don't know that I would have ever resumed a normal life. Today I'm very fortunate. I have a lovely wife. My wife is Katie. We've been married for 24 years, together for 28. We have 2 beautiful children, a daughter, Julia, who's in college, and a son, Anthony, who's a young baseball player. And having the opportunity to come this far in my life and raise these 2 beautiful children after everything we went through is just a really has been a wonderful blessing from God, and I'm really appreciative of it.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, it's just such a miraculous story. God truly blessed you on this day, and to have that tremendous support from your family and the community and the staff at the hospital. I mean, it gave me chills just hearing it. And I can only imagine the pain, the psychological effects that this had, especially, right out of the gate, being told, you've got 2 choices here. You can kind of live a different life, probably be in a wheelchair, or you can work hard and maybe get back on the football field someday. What was your thought process, or did you go through any sort of practices, or how did you deal with it mentally? And like, what were some of the strategies you used to stay motivated and stay on course with what I can only imagine was an incredible amount of work and pain that you had to go through to get there?
Well, that's a great question, and I really appreciate it. So, pain is an interesting, it's an interesting thing to talk about. And, as much pain as I had to deal with in the dressing changes, in the all the things that we went through. Getting burned and then the survival process is probably one of the more painful things that you could go through in your life.
Yeah.
But the idea and the notion of not being able to play football, or not being able to have a normal life, or not being able to achieve what it was that I had in my heart and knew that I could achieve, that was more painful and scarier than the idea of going through all this physical therapy and the idea of everything I had to do to get there. I could not wrap my head around the idea of just being I have a disability. Let's face it, I lost my hand, but I couldn't wrap my head around the idea of being this disabled child who had to live under their parents' roof his entire life, which my parents would have allowed that, who didn't achieve or couldn't get back out onto the field. It's just something that scared me. That was that pain, that fear is what drove me. And so it was my calling card. So anytime you're in business or you have something that you want to do in your life, the key is that you write down your why factor. Okay, you have to understand what your why factor is. Now, my why factor for wanting to get back on the football field was to live a normal life. I just wanted to be a normal person. But what is somebody's why factor when they're in business? What is going to cause you to get up and go up against your competitors every day? What's going to cause you to get up and and deal with banks when the banking situation isn't right, or to deal with consumers, or deal with the tax authorities, or deal with whoever it is, your employees, or whatever adversity, your supply chain? You have to have a why factor that is greater than the adversity or the problem that you have to solve. And see, learning that lesson through this accident has helped to propel me in my business career as well, because I realized that when you have an abnormal problem in your life, like getting burned the way I did, or an abnormal problem in your business, like things are breaking down, you have to really focus on dealing with that abnormal problem before you could get back to solving the normal everyday problems in business, which are just dealing with customers and the things that are in life. So it was just that's really what motivated me, was the calling card to have a normal life.
Yeah. And also the drive to want to get back onto the football field. I played football through my youth and into high school. And, it was a very, very important, very big part of my life that taught me tremendous lessons in leadership and being a part of a team and work ethic and having poise amidst very challenging situations and adversity. So I'm curious for you, how did your experience on the field, especially as a starting linebacker, shape your mindset and approach to not only life, but business as well?
Well, first of all, that's a great question too. When I first started in ninth grade, okay, I was the kid who I weighed probably 115 pounds. I had scarring all over my body. I had one hand, and people probably looked at me, my teammates and coaches probably looked at me as though I was out there just to be part of the team, you see. And, because I couldn't run the same way that I ran then as a senior. I had a lot of growing up to do.
Yeah.
So the first lesson that I learned is that no matter where you are in your life, when you enter into the arena that you want to go, no matter what limitations that you have, if you're not capitalized the right way, if you're not, blessed with all the God-given ability, you have to start where you are. And sometimes you have to start slow. Okay. And I started at a point of a very humble point where no one even thought that I should be there. Okay. And I had to take it slow. It wasn't like every day, the first day I came out on the football field, it was, some extraordinary experience. But, my freshman year, I got the ball one time down at the, as soon as I got started. And my coach at the time was a guy named Denny Flora. He was the running backs coach. He has a great Flora family in football in Newcastle. Well, they got down by the goal line and they wanted me to score a touchdown. But this wasn't a touchdown where they were just opening up and I was able to get in. Well, he handed me the ball and I ran as hard as I could into the line and I fumbled. Okay. I fumbled. And it was a big disappointment for me. We didn't score. I gave up the ball. You know, a lot of people at that moment, would have looked at me and said, okay, this kid's running the ball with one hand. Hey, I felt so bad at that. Okay. I never wanted that to happen again. So I worked every year on how I would secure the ball, but I became a better defensive player. And then as a sophomore, I came back, and now I'm playing on the scout defense against a very good starting offensive team with some players who ended up playing pro ball, and a lot of guys played college. Now I'm playing strong safety, which is a position opposite of the outside linebacker in the defense we were playing. And they would run to the power side, and I would have to take on two guards, a fullback, to get through and hit that tailback every time. Now I'm sitting there weighing about 125 pounds, and when they first start coming at me, these are the seniors, right? And I'm a sophomore. And we had to run this play over and over and over again. And when they first started coming at me, I think that the linemen who were pulling didn't really want to hit me because I was this injured kid, and here I am. But guess what? I came up and I blasted him in the teeth.
Yeah, you gave him full speed ahead.
Full speed. I might have weighed 125 pounds, but I was coming at it. Like my life depended on it.
You used every ounce of it.
Yep. And pretty soon they were telling me to calm down. This is just practice. But at the end of the day, I took that beating, and I went in there and made those plays, and I stuck my head in there as hard as I could. And by the time I was a junior, I was on the special teams for my varsity program. And I was a starter now for 2 years on my junior varsity program. And now I started making plays on the kickoff and in the kicking game. And I started running down there and doing some things and playing under the lights a little bit. Still not a part of the regular defense, but I'm rotational player and I'm a special teams player. And now everyone knows that I'm on that football field because I deserve to be on that football field and I belong there. And no longer were people laying off of me because I had one hand. They were now saying what a hitter I was. Okay. And now I'm starting to get a little bit of pride in what I'm doing. And by the time I was a senior, I was able to move. And I have a lot of quarterback sacks. I don't know exactly how many, probably 6 or 7, couple in a couple different games. I've made some really good plays to save a game, one against Ambridge that was a real special time. And now just having the opportunity then to be as a starter and announced under the lights at Tigard Stadium, where the lights are shining down on me and all the people who supported me through the accident are there, and my parents are crying and my brother's in the stands, and I'm feeling a chill come through me, knowing that I went from my deathbed back to the football field and I earned it and no one gave it to me. And it's something that I could always carry with me. That gave me a sense of that journey that allowed me to then begin my education and business career and start where? At the very beginning and start slow.
Yeah.
And we just repeat that process,
I love that. And especially the start where you are. I think so many people, especially in this day and age where you're comparing yourselves to your idols and always looking at the best version that someone wants to show you through social media. When you're just getting started, it can be very, very overwhelming and intimidating. But just the understanding that everybody has to start from somewhere. You have to start where you are. And when you have the why factor, which for you was getting back onto that field and earning that starting position and working your butt off to get there. I mean, as you're telling this story, I'm just seeing like the Netflix movie a few years from now. Like it's truly a story from, about as low as you can possibly get to overcoming tremendous adversity and realizing that dream that you had. So yeah, I just want to applaud you there. And I appreciate you sharing that story. But I'd love to now get into what you're focused on here today. So that was back in high school. Tell us a little bit about where your journey has taken you and what your focus is here in September of 2023.
Well, that's a good question. I just wrote a memoir named Against All Odds, a story of faith, courage, and never giving up. And it details this accident and this recovery. And it really breaks down it tells a great story. It's a narrative It's in a cinematic view. So when you read it, you're just going to get this great feeling and this great story that it takes you to the depths of hell in some ways, talking about the burn injuries. And then it takes you to really, it's a seesaw of up and down and overcoming adversity. And every time you level up, there's a new set of challenges for you to overcome. So I'm right now, September 26th. The book comes out and it'll be on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. We already made Barnes and Nobles bestseller in a pre-sale campaign, which is really good. So I'm promoting my book and getting that out there. And I also run a small CPA firm with my wife, Katie, who's sitting right behind me. And she's the lifeblood of it at these days. We've done this now since 2005, early 2006 together. So we have a small CPA firm. We do a little bit of investment advisory work. Also a licensed sports agent, NFL agent with through the NFL Players Association. But I'm just an entrepreneur. I've flipped houses in terms of buying and selling and done real estate deals. I've owned rental properties. I've done a lot of investment activities in terms of stock trading and stock investing. And I find that entrepreneurial business is really a passion. I've worked with many clients throughout the years to help them structure their business from beginning to end, from entity, what type of entity do I want to be, to what is my best business succession plan, and how do I build and operate a business plan to make things go as I want them to go along the way. So I've taken some of the lessons that I learned coming through my accident, and now I use those to help other people. And I embed these lessons within my book. So when you read it, you can see a fact pattern that will allow you to overcome the adversities that you're facing in life and your business to be success that you want to be.
Awesome. And very fitting title for the book. I love that. And I can imagine that in writing this memoir, it required a lot of personal reflection, especially, around significant mental barriers that you've had throughout your life and throughout your career. So I'm curious, can you recall a moment in your professional life where self-belief was the primary factor in, achieving that milestone or success, much like you did with your journey back onto the football field?
Well, yes, many. It's like a daily struggle, okay? Because, when you go through such a trauma, okay, you don't realize there's people, you hear this all the time, that you either have a fight or a flight mentality, right? Well, one thing that I've had to deal with through the years is I have a fighter's mentality, okay? So I had to learn how to dial that back. So when I was first starting as a younger man, and I would be in a situation where it would cause negotiations or there would be stress in a business transaction or something, I was so focused and intent on winning that sometimes that would come back to bite me. If you understand that fight, which you need to get out of that deathbed, is the same fight that you use sometimes in places that it's not necessary. Okay. And so getting to understand how to temper and how to work within and be diligent and not give up and do the right thing, but at the same time be tempered, okay, and be smart and be kind and be gracious. That was a real challenge for me earlier in my career, because I had a sharpness to me. Okay. But as I move on, things start to mature a little bit. Things start to get become a little easier. In terms of specific challenges, the beauty of going through and almost dying and then and coming back is there was nothing I didn't think I could do. Okay, so I had an undergraduate degree in finance. Okay, my undergraduate degree is not in accounting. I only had 2 college accounting courses. Okay, I have a master's degree in taxation, but I passed the CPA exam. Okay, and which is an exam that a very small percentage of people who take it pass. It was very difficult, but I knew that if I buckled down the same way I did when I was coming through my physical therapy, there was nothing that I couldn't learn and do. And so the same thing. So that helped me to get licensed as a CPA. It also helped me when you take the NFL Certified Contract Advisors examination, you have to sit down, and I'm a non-lawyer. Okay, all these guys are lawyers. I sat down as a non-lawyer and had to study and prepare for the examination on the collective bargaining agreement, where you have to understand how to work within the framework of the agreement between the owners and the players. So being able to buckle down and study and use my mind to learn, that all comes back to what I learned in what I overcame in the hospital. And so there's been many occasions of not having fear or overcoming fear, and not having self-doubt, and not self-sabotaging, and writing a plan out, and following through with a plan, and identifying and handling your situation with intellect and intelligence rather than emotion and outside influence, and seeing through all of these philosophical factors to really identify what it is and focus on your goal and go get it. And so that's coming through the accident really helped me to do that, and it's helped me to help other people as well.
Yeah, and that's what I'd love to get into next. So you mentioned that you have been able to really distill down the lessons and principles from your experiences of overcoming adversity in this book in a way that other people can apply these principles in their lives, in their careers, whatever the case may be. So everyone needs to buy the book, but can you give us, a little bit of a teaser in terms of how you instill that sense of belief in others, be it in corporate teams or people that you work with directly?
Definitely. Okay, so now, and we can go, and they're woven into the book so well. But I will tell you, like, when I was injured, I want you to think about this. When I was injured, right before I was injured, my mom and dad were going through a separation and divorce. And I was just 12 years old, and it devastated me, right? And at that stage in my life, these two parents who I love so much, and they love me so much, they were just having trouble between themselves, and they couldn't even at this moment be in the same room together. It was just that much of a tough breakup. Even though they love each other today and loved each other from the beginning, they were just at this moment in time where they couldn't even be in the same room. But when I got to the emergency room, and my mother and father came to me together and looked at me, and I told them I was sorry. And now it was just me, my mom, and my dad in the room, and my mom was kissing my face as a tear came down. My dad was rubbing my head, and he said we were all going to make it out of here together. And they sat in that room and they loved me together, despite the fights that they had coming up to this point for months. See, that moment right there showed me a piece of love, okay, and kindness from my parents, that it made me feel so warm, even though I was on this hospital gurney with burns all over my body. Just, I was able to see past it. I couldn't see that. I could see my mother and my father loving me together. And see what that means. And you might think, well, okay, how does that apply to business? Okay, here's how it applies to business. We could be partners, okay, and we might have a interest where you and I are going at it, or we could work for the same company and be competitors in the same company, or we could be in the same industry and be competitors in the same industry, or we could be in the same country and be in different political parties. And we could have adversity when we're going after our goals. We could want to kill each other and say bad things about each other when we're going after our goals. But guess what happens? When a common interest of ours is devastated, when a common interest of the United States is devastated, the Republicans and the Democrats have to come together and make good things happen for our country, like we did in 9/11. When our common interest, when you have a competitor who's coming after your industry, even though you have two guys jockeying to be the next president of the company, those guys got to come together, use their brilliance together to inspire life in their new company. So in that moment, you see in my book that the power of two people who are against each other coming together for a common cause can inspire wonderful and beautiful things. And that power happens to apply in business. And there's many more lessons like that that I could tell you about.
Yeah. I mean, it's so fundamental having a support system, for you, your parents, your football team, your community throughout your life is incredibly important through your journey to recovery and success. For me, the same applies. The more I've focused on building the right community and leaning into the support systems that I've had, the more I've been able to grow and work through some of the challenges and mental roadblocks that inevitably come up in anybody's entrepreneurial journey. So having that support system is crucial. But I think for many people, especially in this remote world that we live in, it can be hard at times, especially in the beginning. So I'm curious if you have any advice that you give people in terms of how they can actively build that support system, or ask for help when needed and lean into the support that they need throughout their careers.
Absolutely. Okay. Number one is that you cannot be afraid. Okay. So Murphy's Law is that if you are afraid, your worst, what you fear is going to happen. Okay. You have to eliminate fear. And what does that mean? So I don't care if you're going into the automotive business, or if you're going to be a barber, if you're going to be whatever it is, if you're going to open up a small business, you can't be afraid to go and ask for a mentor and talk to people who've done it already. The shortest distance between where you are today and where you want to be, somebody else ran that course. Okay. Many people ran that course. So if you want to run that course, you have to make friends with other people in the business or in business who've already made the mistakes or learned from the mistakes that you need to avoid. That is key. So don't be afraid to go to the top people you can. See, when I was injured, I was very fortunate to have a medical staff that were some of the top burn doctors in the United States and around the world. Okay. Well, what we learned is my parents had the faith. They said to my parents two things. They said, do you want us to make him comfortable, or do you want us to try to save his life? Very important answer to the question. Okay. If they said make him comfortable, I wouldn't be here today. So my parents had to take a risk, right? They had the risk. Okay, we're going to let him endure this pain. Okay, at the consequence, that it may not work, and he may, or we're going to let him be comfortable and then he's gone. They had to take a risk. Okay. So if you're going to go into business, you have to bet on yourself sometimes. Okay. That's a very important thing. And you got to be comfortable when you're betting on yourself. And number two, so my parents bet on me. And number two, then there was nothing my parents could do to make me survive. Only the experts could, right? So what I had to do was just lay there and be still. And my parents had to just sit there and have faith while the experts did what they had to do. So in business, when you're starting a business, you need to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Yeah. And sometimes being the leader means that you listen more and do less. Okay. You surround yourself with the right people, but oftentimes people get in business, they want to call the shots. Well, when you call the shots, then you're only going to be as good as your talent provides you. But when you have talented people around you, people who can solve problems in a way that you never could, that empowers you to do the things that you're gifted in. So by all means, you have to be surrounded by, do not be afraid. Surround yourself with the right people. Okay. And be willing to endure criticism. Because when you're sitting and if, you're 18 years old or 20 years old or 25 years old, you're telling your uncle, I'm going to start this business. Your uncle still sees you as the 6-year-old who was running around in the backyard with ice cream on his face. So he doesn't necessarily see you as someone who might be able to change the world or change people's hearts or innovate and do something really special in terms of business. So when you present him with that, he might tell you to take the less risky road, get a job, work your 40 hours for 40 years and, and retire. But if that's not what's in your heart, so you have to sound out the music behind you, and you have to understand and keep internally in your heart what you know it is that you can do. Because once you start talking about that outside, there's going to be a lot of naysayers, and those naysayers might get in your psychology, in your head. It might be the reason that you can't find and fulfill your dreams. So don't let somebody else's definition of you define what you're going to be.
Yeah.
You just can't do that.
Got to own your why factor.
Yep.
So a little bit of a pivot here, but I want to dive into some more tactical things. With your extensive experience in taxation and business advisory, what are some common mistakes that you see new entrepreneurs making, and how can they avoid them?
The biggest mistake that I see a new entrepreneur make is that they don't set up the proper type of accounting and bookkeeping system. Okay. We get in the
Guilty of
business.
that for sure in the beginning.
We get in the business because we're passionate about something, right? What are you passionate about? Okay, that's number one. You have to be passionate about something. Okay, whether it's passionate about being a lawyer, passionate about being a medical doctor, passionate about being a writer, owning a landscaping profession, whatever it is, you have to have a passion for doing what you're doing. But then you have to keep an accounting for it. So we use in our practice, we teach our clients to use QuickBooks Online for small businesses that allows us to help them to reconcile their books on a monthly basis. And it links to their bank accounts. And so essentially we can go in there and get copies of their credit card statement, bank accounts, all the things that are to it. And then we can help them to see what the results of their operation is for every month. Okay. Because without understanding what the results, where you're spending your money, where it's being allocated. And worst of all is when you have business owners who are commingling all of their business and personal expenses. So there's just a complete gray area as to what's going on here. Okay, it does not allow the business owner to properly track their business, understand where their growth points are, understand where their pain points are, properly allocate the amount of money they owe in federal and state taxes, and do their payroll the right way. So you have to have that in place, a proper accounting and bookkeeping system in place to support you so that you understand the results of your operation and where you want to go in the future.
Yeah, and just talking from my experience, when I started, my my system was terrible, and yeah, it got me through for the first couple years, but ultimately what rolled in was this fog of, oh crap, I mean, there are some serious problems with how my books and my filings have been done over the last couple years. And that sense of dread and fear of, oh, am I going to get audited? What's going to come down the pipeline in the future? It really weighs on you. And if you're not an accounting expert, if you're not a tax expert, it can be hard to invest when you're just getting started and you don't have the funds to hire someone to manage this stuff for you. But if I were to go back and do things differently, at least bringing someone in to educate me and help set up the right systems, to get QuickBooks Online set up with the right categories, to be able to go in and do that bookkeeping myself in a way that would help me understand cash flow in, cash flow out, where my money's being allocated, what I have to reinvest in any given month back into the business, and have a very clean book that I can turn over to a tax specialist at the end of the year, where there's not going to be a whole bunch of red flags and unknowns in the equation. Luckily I've learned my lesson there and have fixed things up, but there was definitely a point where I had to say, oh crap, like this could really come back and bite me in the butt if I were to get, audited and have to go through that process with the IRS. So
then, I've worked out many of, the funny thing is when you have guys, they get in business, they get a lot of 1099s and then they just totally neglect their taxes. I've seen that happen. Yeah. And they get all these 1099s and then all of a sudden the IRS gets the 1099s. Okay. But the guy never filed his taxes. And so the IRS just gives you an assessment. Okay. I've had guys come into me with $400,000 or $500,000 of tax assessment just because they didn't file their taxes. Okay. And then when you get right back to it, you're able to work those things out. So, nobody gets in business because they want to keep an accounting or prepare, a tax return, or that's like the opposite of why they get in business.
For
Okay.
sure.
So, but it's absolutely, and one piece of advice that I learned actually at a Tony Robbins seminar, he really put it well. He said, he goes, when you're a business owner, you have to have a great lawyer, but you have to become a great lawyer, so to speak, for yourself. So you're just not being led down a road, okay, by, to pay legal fees. When you get in business, you have to have a great accountant, but you have to become a great accountant so that you're not relying on anybody, okay? When you're in business, you have to learn, you have to become a great investor, okay? But you have to have great investment advisors so that you learn. So the idea is, when you're in business, yes, you have this specialized knowledge that you need to have of your own particular business that you're in. But then part of being a CEO is also having general knowledge of the legal landscape, the legal environment that you operate in, the accounting environment that you operate in, the general tax laws of the communities that you're in, federal and state and local. And you have to have an understanding for investment and how to allocate, resources that are not being used today, so that they're yielding you a return as well. So being in business is not just simply conducting a service or selling a widget. It is actually being able to manage all of these facets and learning from others. So that once again, that points back to, you have to have the right mentors. You have to have the right attorney. And there's three other pieces of advice that I give. Number one, you never talk to your lawyer about your money. And number two, you never talk to your accountant about your legal issues unless they're necessary. Okay. Mm-hmm. So essentially, you have to compartmentalize, and you want to talk to your lawyer. The reason you don't talk to your lawyer about your money is because, that's not his concern. Okay. You talk to your lawyer about your business structure, your employment structure, your legal issues that come up in your business, maybe the insurances that you have to make sure that you're not exposed the proper way. But that lawyer isn't necessarily trained to be your financial advisor. Yeah. So you keep your finances private. Now, when you talk to your CPA, about your chart of accounts in your business. How do you properly budget and allocate funds? And, how do you properly make sure that you're capitalized and have enough money from the banks that you can float when payments might come in slow? But you're not necessarily talking to that accountant about this contract issue over here. Okay, because that's not their expertise. So you compartmentalize, and by doing so, now when it's necessary, there may be a reason to talk to the lawyer about your finances. When it's necessary, there may be a reason to talk to the CPA about a legal issue. You might have to do that at times, but as a general rule, you keep these things separate, and you learn, and you become the expert in each area of your business. That way, if you ever have to transition from that lawyer or transition from that CPA, you don't have to rely on them. Yeah. And that's very important, because that way you own your business.
Yeah. Great pieces of advice. And especially just having the literacy when it comes to accounting, when it comes to the finances of your business, and on the legal side as well. Although I would say it takes the experience through circumstances to really gain that, unless you are paying for that education. But having that, and if you don't have it, finding the advisors, paying for the education. Everyone should take a basic accounting class if you're going to go into business for yourself, because to your point, yeah, you want to delegate that to an expert, but you don't want to be led astray. You want to be able to spot issues if the person you did hire to manage something is mismanaging it. And when transitions come, you need to be able to pick up and, plug back in with someone else. And if you don't have the basic understanding of accounting, that's going to be a challenging situation and a more painful transition for you. So
and
lessons
how do
I
you
learned the hard way, but
and how do you manage them, right?
yeah,
How do
exactly.
how do I manage somebody? Like, I need to manage my lawyer. I need to manage my accountant. I need to manage my investment. How do I manage somebody if I don't know what they're doing at least as well as they do, as it relates to me? So you have to be able to manage your professional advisors the same way that you have to be able to manage your employees.
Yeah. Don't go in blind. Don't just blindly trust that someone's going to take care of everything for you. You got to manage it. So, all right, Anthony, a little bit of a transition here as we move to wrap up, but this is a podcast about entrepreneurship. We've talked a lot about business, a lot of great insights in here. But one of the biggest hurdles that most successful entrepreneurs face, really anyone faces at one time or another in their life, is how to live a well-rounded life and do the things that bring us joy with the people that we care about most. So I always like to dig in and get an understanding for how my guests navigate that. So what does living a well-rounded life look like for you?
Well, that's a great question. It's probably my favorite question. Okay. Living a well-rounded life to me is, when I wake up in the morning every day, I'm talking to God. That's what I do. When I go to bed, I'm talking to God. When I am going through my day, I'm talking to God. And I can say this with full truth. Me talking to God doesn't make me any less of a sinner or somebody who doesn't make mistakes or trip and fall, because I probably have tripped and fell and done more than anybody. Okay. But even so, I wake up and I talk to God because he doesn't leave you. Okay. And I'm not talking about religion here. Okay. Because I don't care if you're Jewish, if you're Catholic, if you're Christian, if you're Buddhist. I don't care what your religious background is. Okay. If you want to say talk to the universe, you say talk to the universe. But at the end of the day, I am connected to a higher power, to God. Okay. As a lover of Christ myself, I'm connected to God all day long. Number two, I try to connect my family to God all day long. My children, the people who love me, my wife. We talk about God, and I'm teaching them how to talk about God every single day. Okay, and how to talk to God every single day. And that's a very important factor. So then I spend my time each day, my wife and my kids, we try to have dinner around the dinner table. Just like the old school. We cook together, we like to have dinner around the dinner table, and we talk about our lives together. I coach my son in baseball and in football, and I get out there with these kids, and I give back to the community, and I give back to young kids in coaching the same way great coaches did to me, because I want to inspire kids to have perseverance in the face of adversity. And that is what I call an avocation rather than a vocation. And I want them to see me out there. At first, they look at my hand. Pretty soon, they don't even realize I'm injured. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden, I'm that coach that's too loud. and then I'm helping them to accomplish something that's good, and they overcome something, and it's a really great feeling. So I establish balance in my life by coaching youth, by staying close to God, and every once in a while, I'll get on the golf course and I have to beat up on my friends a little bit.
There we go. There we go. Well, that's to me the epitome of living life on purpose. And, to you, it boils down to those pillars of faith, family, and community, it sounds like. So I appreciate you sharing that. And as we close out here, I have a choose your own adventure question for you. So you can pick which one you'd like to answer, or both if you so desire. But what's a favorite place you visited in, say, the past 5 years or so? Or what is a recent adventure you went on? And in either case, what was it like? What made it so memorable? Who were you with? Maybe a lesson you learned, a favorite meal or drink you had. Tell us a story.
Well, there's so many. And I'll tell you really an important story, an important place for me in this world. Right before I was injured, the summer before, I went to a place called Ocean City, Maryland, right outside of on the Atlantic coast, right outside of Baltimore, about 2 hours outside of Baltimore. And I went with my Aunt Marilyn and her family, and it was the first time I had seen the beach. I was 11 years old since I was maybe 2, and it was just a great experience. But it was out without my mom and dad. Now, then after I was in it, my mom had this big regret because the first time I saw this beach like this. Then after I was injured, we went back then the next summer when I was 12. And my mom took me to Ocean City. Now it's with me and my mom. And I'm here in this Job's garment. I have burns all over me. I'm still going into the water. Could barely walk. I'm back on my feet. And my mom starts playing this song by Whitney Houston. I believe that children are the future. And she would sing that to me every day. And learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. Well, as this young 12-year-old who was just injured this way, me and my mom would bellow this song in her car. At the time, there was just cassette tapes, and we would sing, and I would sing as hard as I could. And she brought me to the boardwalk where they had these booths where you could sing and you could do a song, and they would record it for you, and then they were glass on the outside and people could watch. Well, here I am, this burn kid, barely stand up, one hand, shrug shoulders, and I'm singing, I believe that children are the future, in this glass. And my mom's sitting out there crying. And as I'm singing this, I had a terrible voice. I had a terrible voice. My voice was cracking.
Didn't matter.
all these people came around, all these people came around and started like literally singing and crying. And it was like the most beautiful thing because, when you're injured this way, you look at yourself and you have these scars, but the truth is learning to love yourself again, it is the greatest love of all. And since then, having my 2 children and my wife before we moved to Florida, we went to Ocean City every single year. Every single year I would go on that boardwalk and if you look at the cover of my book, okay, the cover of my book there's a pier with a little boy standing at the end in the sun over his head. Well, this picture was taken in 2019 by me of my son. Well, the backstory is we're in Ocean City. My son's 6 or 7 at the time, 7. And I'm holding his hand and we're crossing the street and he darts off. Let's go, my hand, darts off across the street. Well, when he does that, a Corvette was flying down the road, didn't see him, and he's walking and intersecting right with it's going to happen. It's right before my eyes. And I screamed at the top of my lung, stop. Well, when I did that, he stopped on a dime, and the Corvette stopped a little past where it was. It would have hit him.
Yeah.
And my wife was shook. And I was shook, and my daughter was shook, and we went and finished our breakfast, and we thank God that didn't happen. And a little while later, we went for a ride, and we found this pier over the bay, and my son walked out on that pier. And when he did, I was just so thankful that he was with us, and I took this picture, and it came out beautiful. Now, when I wrote my book, I had to send a bunch of pictures to my publishing company, John Wiley and Associates, and out of all the pictures, they picked that and made that the picture on my book, A Picture in Ocean City. So, traveling to Ocean City has been wonderful, healing, but it just shows me that the gift that I had in my life, I was there before I was burned, in the middle of my accident, afterwards with my family, saw my son almost involved, hit by a car, but his life was, there was nothing, there was no damage. And the moment later, this beautiful picture. And now I get to share this story and that picture with the world, which is a story of living life against all odds, and of having faith, courage, and never giving up. And I hope your readers or your listeners will go to my website, AnthonyRozzano.com. That's Anthony, RAZZANO.com. Visit the website, take a look at it. You'll see a lot of great things, and order a copy of my book there, order it on Barnes and Nobles or Amazon, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of good things that will come to you in business in your life, and it's a beautiful thing.
Against all odds. Truly, truly appreciate you sharing your story with us, Anthony. We're going to put links to everything in the show notes, to your website, to the book. I know I'm going to be purchasing the book and reading it myself, and I'm excited for it. So just want to say I'm extremely grateful for you coming on this show, and I'm looking forward to continuing to follow your journey.
Well, thank you, TJ, and thank you for having me. It's been a real blessing to spend some time with you. And if there's anything I could ever do for you, please let me know. And it's just been a real honor for me to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Awesome, man. That was great.
Awesome. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Got an incredible story. I'm excited for the book. You said it comes out on the 26th?
Yeah, so it's 6 days away.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 days away.
Man,
let me write your address down. I'll send you a copy.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, let me write your address down.
It's 60908 Southeast Sweet Pea, like a green pea, Sweet Pea Drive, Bend, Oregon, 97702.
And that's Bend, BEND.
Yep.
All right. And what's the zip again?
97702.
Okay, TJ Murphy. Yeah, I'll send it up.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Anthony. And
Definitely.
yeah, like I said, I'm super grateful for you coming on the show. I'll mirror what you said. If there's anything I can do to support you, I would love to shout the book out when it launches. So I'll be doing that. But if there's anything else, feel free to ping me anytime. I really do appreciate it.
Hey, and if you ever have a topic that you want to talk about, whether it's real estate investment, taxes, whatever, if you want to drill down deep on it, I'm more than willing to help you.
Yeah,
and chat about that.
Yeah, like especially real estate. That's something it's been on my mind for years, and I'm finally just starting to educate myself. Obviously,
I did a real estate
time
podcast.
To be getting into it, but what was that?
Yeah, I did a real estate podcast a few months ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and we talk about like kinds of exchanges, 1031 exchanges, different commercial investments and depreciation strategies. And I mean, I could really drill down deep on that stuff if you ever want to chat.
Awesome. What was the podcast you were on?
Well, it's on my website. Let me pull it up.
All right, I can find
Let me see here. Because
that's how I've been educating myself mostly is just listening to podcasts. There's some good ones out there.
Definitely. It's actually my cousin Michael, and his is a real estate guy, and he and a real estate agent were running it. Let me see here. Media podcast, episode 18. Let me see here. It's under the media side. It's called Cashed In.
Cash In, okay.
Yeah, real estate podcast. Cashed In real estate podcast.
All right, I'll look it up.
Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Well, man. I appreciate it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and so basically for this episode, we're about a month out from when it'll release. And we put together kind of a social media package with a reel clip from the episode. So we'll tag you, of course, but you can share that out however you want on all the platforms. I'll send that over in an email when we launch and include the links to the episode everywhere where it's published. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
That'll be great. I'm excited about it. It's cool.
Awesome, man. Well, have a great rest of your week. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you. Have a great one. Take care. See you now.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye.
To all of our adventurous listeners, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share this on social media or with someone you know will get some value from it. Leaving a review goes a long way in helping people find the show, and I personally appreciate reading them when they come in. So please go drop one if you have the time. We'll see you all next week, and remember, whether we're talking about business or the things that bring us joy outside of work, life is meant for exploring. So go out there and live it one adventure at a time.